Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we're excited to be here again and talking about AI, but one of my favorite topics, which is creative testing. I'm a creative background, started my career as an art director. I worked in creative before I became a strategist and found my calling was in strategy, but creative's close to my heart and I work in creative strategy and creative testing a lot. So this was a very exciting opportunity to do this fireside chat. And Savor is an incredible brand, really fascinating company, fascinating set of products, I think meeting a real consumer need in the market. So I thought I'd open with that. Maybe tell us a little bit about your products and the consumer needs they meet and sort of how unique they are in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So Savor is a company that's focused on memories and keepsakes, and they have these really beautiful keepsake boxes, almost like an advent calendar. So just think really beautifully designed, really premium materials, and you can put, let's say you get married, you have a child, you are preparing, maybe for your parents to get organized with their wills and estates, and they have an item that's gone viral on TikTok, which is the "In Case I Go Missing" binder. So you can put your fingerprints, a locket of hair, your passport. So in case you get kidnapped by a Mexican cartel, you now know what to give to the FBI. So you can imagine this definitely had a lot of viral lift online.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see. Obviously, these organizational products have been around forever, these binders, these things, but to see a company really create them for specific moments. There's sort of baby keepsake boxes and wedding boxes and travel memories and also just things to keep your documents safe, all that, like really interesting, and obviously seems to fit real consumer needs in the market right now. And I have to imagine those are very social friendly products. People want to hear about those stories. They really meet current lifestyle moments. How are you using advertising right now? Which channels? How are you meeting that need in the market and finding consumers in those moments where those products really resonate with them?
Yeah, this is an interesting brand where it's the first time I've seen TikTok outperform Meta, both in terms of organic and paid performance. We do a lot with TikTok Shop. We do a lot with the affiliate network within TikTok Shop and invest very heavily there. And it really pays dividends. Now, it's harder to predict what's going to actually take off or not. So you're definitely playing a much larger field with your sampling and the partnerships you're doing there. But I think the storytelling opportunity really resonates in that format. It's, a lot of people just talking about, hey, I'm really worried, I'm a mother, I have 2 small children, and my husband has no idea where the important documents are. And if I get in a car crash, I need to know that he has access to all the insurance paperwork and, things like that. So there's a lot of narratives that are coming out around this, and some more on the fear-based sides, a lot around joy, right? So, hey, I want to do something really fun with my daughter and my mother, multi-generational, going through the wedding album and putting all those mementos into one spot, So it's really, really fun to see how people use the product.
That's really great. Obviously, very emotional territories you're in, having a baby, getting married, going on a trip, or losing a loved one, or just needing to keep your documents safe, right? In fires, flooding, whatever. Tell us maybe a little bit about your creative strategy then. How are you thinking about those moments, thinking about those emotional triggers? What kind of creative are you using? Especially sounds like in those social channels, Instagram, TikTok, etc.
Yeah, so thinking about performance marketing these days, and there's so much downward pressure on it with rising CACs and all that. If anything, this comes from the DR days, right? You have to focus on the hook in the first 3 seconds. So one of the strategies, and this kind of dovetails with the AI that we've put in place, and I encourage everyone watching this, listening to this, if you do one thing, download all of your customer reviews and put those into ChatGPT and then put in like your brand guide and your brand voice or whatever else. But to say, what are the 5 reasons why people love us and the 5 reasons why people might not be buying from us? And then from there, what we've done is now put together this framework for creative testing. So I'll walk you through what we've done, and there's definitely ways to iterate on this. Once we have these insights, what I want to do in the marketing is overcome these potential objections, right? What's your return policy? How quickly will it get to me? It seems a little expensive, whatever it is. And then I go into GPT and I say, okay, now write me 5 audio scripts, because we're going to run this in podcast first, that I can use to test out hooks and the messaging around what's going to overcome these objections. So I have it write 15-second and 30-second spots. We flight that into Spotify because super self-serve, don't have to spend that much to start to get some engagement metrics. Once we see what's resonating in Spotify, now we're going to the creative team and saying, now let's do the video content that we're going to run on TikTok ads, Instagram ads, etc., right? Because that takes more internal resourcing. Now we're doing the more typical, put it into ASC, see what works, and then we're taking those best performing and using that to inform what we're going to be running on CTV, because obviously that has the most investment required around it and the most time and energy. So really through the entire process, there's a human in the loop overseeing all of the iteration, but really letting GPT drive that process. And the best thing is this used to take months. You can do this entire thing in a week.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's incredible. What a great insight there. I mean, to think about the work we do often in creative strategy and reviewing those reviews and going deep in consumer insights and taking months or weeks to find the insight, whatever, to drive the ad, like it's the old way of doing things. The fact that within a week you're able to do that. I think it's really interesting leveraging Spotify as a testing platform to determine triggers of what works or what doesn't before you invest further. Fascinating, brilliant idea. Maybe tell me a little bit, what have been some of the things that have surprised you the most in the learnings? What are the things that perhaps it's through the AI tool giving you insights you never discovered before, or perhaps in the testing phase, what surprised you? What came from this that you sort of said, wow, these are great insights, and this process has really helped us get to connect with the consumer better, sell more, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and one thing I forgot is when you're doing the podcast ads, just put it into 11 Labs, so you're not paying a voiceover actor, right? Yeah, so you don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, brilliant.
So in terms of the insights, it's when you're close to a brand, I don't think that you shouldn't be surprised by what GPT is saying customers like and don't like about you. Mm-hmm. You might be a little surprised about the rank order of those comments, right? But for us, it's really been instrumental in thinking about, in those first 3 seconds, what is the audio that we need? And then it's allowed us to iterate on what's the visual creative. So is it someone's face? Is it someone's box? Is it someone's hands? Is someone on a white background in a house? Someone with a kid, with a dog? Because then we know that this hook works. But if this ad isn't working, it's probably something about the visual element, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's often hard to, especially when you're doing video content, to tease out, is it the visual or is it the audio? Mm-hmm. And I think this is a nice way to really drill down on that.
Eric, do you end up doing a lot of A/B testing in the sense of once you're into those visuals, you're trying the creator face version versus the brand, perhaps hand or unboxing? I mean, are you trying sort of different creative visuals in A/B testing along with the same idea or same core creative concept?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that's challenging with a TikTok first brand is creative fatigues so much faster on TikTok. Like you can have a best performing ad in Meta that can be running for 18 months, right? And oftentimes it's probably your least favorite ad personally as a brand marketer, but it's the one that does the best. But TikTok, that creative's going to fatigue. You're lucky if it lasts 4 weeks. So you need an insane amount of pipeline in order to not even grow, just to stay relevant, right? Because the algorithm spits it out so quickly. That's one of the challenges that even as a smaller brand or any brand where you're fighting for resources, you got to be like, how are we going to be the most efficient with the time and the team that we have?
Yeah, fascinating, right? The amount of content necessary, the amount of creative you have to put in the market. Long for the days of linear TV and 12-week long creative wear outs. Now we're right a week and we're starting to see maybe wear out happen. How do you deal with that need of the platforms, especially TikTok, for just the amount of content necessary to stand up a brand such as yours that is so broad in a product offering as well?
Yeah, listen, I feel like we're doing everything we can to keep up and to grow, but it's really hard. And the other thing that's challenging is, there's trending sounds on TikTok. The algorithm is really, in my opinion, a little glitchy, especially post having it been shut down. Like all of our AdSense went back into learning. The ROAS was terrible for a while. So it's really about, and the funny thing is like something that might not have worked 6 months ago now can work. So you got to maybe sometimes bring things back as well. But at the end of the day, there is no hungrier beast on the planet than an e-commerce company when it comes to content.
Right.
Between email, social, performance marketing, like all of it, you never have enough content.
Yeah, yeah. The obviously social commerce. There was a number of great panels yesterday, really talking about social commerce in a number of ways. And of course, we have TikTok Shopping, other platforms like that. Have you guys played in that space yet, or are you seeing anything interesting there?
Yeah, so most of our success on TikTok is driving directly to TikTok Shop. So all the affiliate partnerships go directly to TikTok Shop. All of our ad spend on TikTok goes directly to TikTok Shop. And then we really leverage Meta and Google for driving traffic to our website. Of course, something does well on TikTok, video goes viral, your sales on Amazon and other channels, you get that halo effect. But for us, TikTok Shop has really been instrumental. The other thing is that it's a little hard because TikTok's been playing with incentives so much. They'll subsidize your shipping, you do 20% off, they'll fund 10% of it. Those, you have to really play the game with TikTok, and they give you all these. It's almost like playing a really complicated video game. Like someone on our team is like mapping out all the promotions and the dates and the requirements. And it's like this really intense board game. But if you can play it right, if you have a good rep at TikTok, they can really unlock a lot of doors for you.
Oh, that's great. That's fascinating. Do you end up then using, we were talking about creative testing and how that's used. Do you use some of those opportunities from TikTok for creative testing, specifically those specific promotional windows or things like that?
Yeah, totally. So what I love about TikTok is if you are seeding hundreds of influencers or affiliates within TikTok a month, you'll start to see stuff that bubbles up that you would have never thought was messaging that would resonate with the potential audience for your brand. Right. And I think when the challenge is, for probably a lot of us in this room, is we don't just have one specific customer, right? We have everyone from Gen Z to boomers who are a potential target audience. So thinking about the content that's going to really make sense for each of them.
Yeah. Do you end up mapping some of that segmentation or customer types by channels? Is your advertising different in Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and those channels and by product? Or how do you think about segmentation in your product mix and those demographics, especially in this idea of testing and channels?
Yeah, the one thing that is nice about Savor is we don't have incredibly vast assortment of SKUs, right? So we have a couple hero products, which really allows us to focus on those. And of course, there's secondary products that we want more revenue on, but we know what's really going to get people to the site, and then we can upsell them on the other items. Are we doing enough with segmentation and mapping? I don't think anyone would say that they are, right? There's this unlimited possibilities around personalization and tracking UTMs and all that fun stuff, but we're trying our best.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about in channels as well as with TikTok and with your TikTok ads and TikTok shopping, obviously you're driving the revenue there. But are you using specific channels for specific goals? Or tell us a little bit about that. If you want more DTC traffic, more web-based customers, what are you doing there? Also, are you supporting retail? And if so, how are you supporting retail and advertising?
Yeah, so this is an interesting brand in that most places I've been, the website's the primary driver of revenue, and then Amazon, and then something like a TikTok shop. This one, it's completely reversed, right? And we also have some retail partnerships with like Pottery Barn and Container Store, places like that. Our real focus right now is trying to do everything we can within TikTok Shop. We also are doing the Fulfilled by TikTok, so TikTok's version of FBA, in Amazon land. They are much more aggressive in terms of the penalties if you don't cycle through your inventory in a timely manner. So once you get it there, you really got to move it. So that's really been a focus for us right now.
It's really interesting. I mean, I think a lot of brands here and watching are you're right, on the other side of that, right? They're maybe trying TikTok out, they're trying TikTok shopping, they probably come for retail side. You're probably tip of the spear in many ways of your brand being so DTC consumer focused, TikTok shopping focused. What can you tell this group about what you've learned about TikTok shopping so far, TikTok shop, how that best works? If these are more traditional retail brands learning that platform, what do they need to do and think about? Yeah,
TikTok really, if you can be a first mover on whatever TikTok is getting behind. So TikTok Lives, TikTok Shop, TikTok Affiliate. If you can be a first mover, you will gain incremental, insane growth. The challenge, though, is if TikTok starts to deprioritize that initiative and you've heavily invested in it, then you have to rethink your entire strategy. So I don't know for a fact, but the consensus among some other folks that are pretty active in TikTok is that TikTok Live was a big push in Q4. And I don't know if anyone consumes content on TikTok, but you probably saw a lot more lives happening. So a lot of agencies have sprouted out that will do content for you. And TikTok was saying you needed to be live like at least effectively like every day for an hour, if not more, right? Like an incredible amount of online content, right? It seems that maybe the algorithm is deprioritizing the lives now, right? I might be wrong. It might just be, my brand. I see someone else nodding their head. So what do you do with all that investment in terms of, energy and content and giveaways and seeding and things? So it's not for the faint of heart. It's very turbulent. You have to be very flexible, and it requires alignment across operations, marketing, finance in particular, to make sure that everyone is like, okay, we have to make a change like today because we're seeing this trend in the data.
Oh, super interesting. So I mean, it's very much a cultural approach in the company about how to think about advertising very differently. Again, gone are the days from 10, 20 years ago where we were planning a year out for next year's creative and campaign. You're literally in the moment, in an agile moment, tracking the TikTok's algorithm trends and what TikTok's pushing for brands in the moment, and also at the same time doing that with your creative and content all at once. So you're literally building the plane as you fly it, but at all times it'll never be done.
Yeah, that plane's never landing.
Yeah, never landing. Okay, incredible. But to hear that is the key to success on that platform, I think is really beneficial. Just this idea of agility. What did you have to overcome internally in the organization? Was that mindset and culture always there, or was there something you had to do from where you were coming from on a marketing level to get that organization sort of behind these ideas that we have to be highly agile and not everything will be a success?
Yeah. So luckily the organization was already very focused on TikTok as an initiative when I started with them. The founder is very charismatic, very good front of camera, has done a lot. And I think the founder content is not to be overlooked. And she lives in New York City where I live. So she'll just be walking the street and you'll hear someone like, "Get off your phone, lady," and like doing the thing. And it's really like fun. So she's all in on it. And it's also performing. So as an organization, we knew that TikTok had to be where we're focusing. We don't really give product to influencers on Instagram. We don't really give, so it's all a TikTok strategy right now, for better or worse, but that's really where the brand's been.
Yeah. What's the creative mix like? Are you working with creators in TikTok? Is there a mix of creator-made advertising and brand-made advertising? And again, how does maybe creative testing play into those two sides?
Yeah, we're not paying. So there's levels of affiliates you can work with in TikTok. We're not doing any of the paid partnerships. It's all you have, and a lot of these people are just starting out in their TikTok journey in terms of trying to be an affiliate. So we give them free product. We hope that they post. We hope that it hits. Apparently TikTok will penalize them if they don't post, but I don't know if that's actually true. So we have some requirements on like what we look for in terms of GMV and like audience alignment. Yeah.
Really interesting. I mean, the fact that you're being so scrappy and so agile, and driving such a big business through that is fascinating. It's just, again, a very different approach that most brands tend to take or look at even in their digital and social commerce ecosystem. The creative you make yourselves for the brand, what have you been seeing that's performing the most? Again, you work in creative testing, so you have this sense of performance. Is it creator-like faces on camera? Is it unboxings? Is it feature heavy, functional benefit type, creative? What messaging? What types of creatives really working for you guys?
It does tend to be a little bit more on the fear-based, right? So I'm worried that my husband won't be able to find the papers, or my sister just passed away and here's the stuff, like we didn't know her passwords. We didn't know any of the stuff. It was really hard for the family. Things like that tend to work. We do have an in-house creator that does a lot of our content, and she does a lot of testing with different hooks, and we'll come up with themes around, hey, it's Mother's Day, like, she's a mother, so she'll talk about her family and her children. So we do try to iterate around that.
Fear wins over joy?
I mean, Yeah.
by
I guess if the
12
election told us anything, that's true.
12.2% better performance. That's great. Any other tips you can give this room on sort of how to use AI to build better creative testing and certainly for the TikTok platform?
Yeah, I would say definitely start with the customer, right? All of us that are in marketing, we have to be the voice of the customer internally and make sure that we're always championing what they need. I think it also is, if you're at a founder-led brand, sometimes it can be very autobiographical. And at a certain tipping point of the company, that might not necessarily be who the core customer is anymore. So just staying really close to the customer feedback. Obviously, customer reviews. You can download all of your history in, whatever CX tool you're using, put that into the GPT, look at all the social media listening, look at the comments on your ads, but just, what's the customer sentiment, right? What are people saying about you? How do they feel? Because at the end of the day, what is the very best form of marketing? Your friend tells you about something, right? It's free, it's authentic, and it's completely going to be the best driver of a purchase.
Yeah, incredible. Amazing stuff. Well, congratulations. Great work. And yeah, I think we have a bit of time for questions. If there's questions from anyone.
Questions?
Who needs to win on TikTok?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Hey, so you talked a lot about TikTok, and then you talked about Meta and Google as traffic drivers. Any other social channels? I'm thinking about YouTube in particular. Are you leveraging that at all? Are you thinking about that for the future, just given the growth of the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very bullish on YouTube. I think that, obviously YouTube's owned by Google, and just the SEO benefits of having videos on there, even if you're not promoting them in performance marketing ways. But it's definitely something that we're starting to do a lot more of. And, because like PMax can pick up those videos too, I think it's really important to invest. But the difference is not just the overall dimensions, but the type of content that works on YouTube is very different than what's on TikTok, right? So now everyone's throwing their TikTok content into YouTube Shorts, which is great. Like, I know they're making a push there, and you're probably losing if you're not doing it, but you need to really think about your YouTube strategy. So someone once told me that the number one video on YouTube of all time, maybe this is no longer the case, but was how to tie a bow tie, right? And I think that YouTube really is the how-to question-based channel of how do I fix a leaky sink? How do I do whatever, right? So that's how we're starting to think about our content strategy there, which is very different than some of the messaging on the other channels.
Is that very much then a first move for you into long form? But it sounds like you were doing podcasts as well. Were you doing sort of more long form? And I may be thinking long form, 2-minute plus, et cetera, kind of content.
Yeah, so this is an earlier stage brand, so they haven't done a lot of longer form content. I think there's a huge opportunity. There are people that teach classes on organizational strategies and things, like we should be thinking about how we can add that value to our audience as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Anyone else? I have a question. You mentioned that typically it's, website, Amazon, TikTok shop, but yours is kind of reversed now. Any other kind of reversing to, your marketing funnel? We talked about consideration for some areas, focused on loyalty, in-store experience. Has it flipped any other kind of models you use for your marketing flow or budget allocation?
Yeah, usually the brands I'm at, for better or worse, it's like a majority of our spend goes to Meta, followed by Google, followed by anything else, TikTok, Reddit, podcast, whatever, right? And then not layering in if you're big enough to do like linear TV and things like that. So for this brand, like Meta is a little bit of an afterthought, which is something I'm, trying to work on with the creative testing, but it's a different way to think about how the business can grow and what the vectors are around that.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Okay, great.